What is going on, everyone? What is going on, everyone? Welcome back into the W.A.D.E Concept Podcast. My name is Wade Plemons. I'm your host, as always. And yeah, everybody, welcome back in, baby. It has been a long couple of days. I haven't seen you guys or heard from you guys in a few days here. We just went Monday and Friday this week. But before we get into anything, let me do the whole where you can find me stuff so we can get that out of the way. So, if you guys are new to the podcast, make sure you subscribe and like on YouTube. If you're not watching the podcast, first off, what are you doing if you're not watching the podcast? You don't get this type of energy just with your ears. You got to see me. I need these two to lock eyes with these. You know what I'm saying? You staring at a bull right now. You want to lock eyes with this? You want to lock horns with this? Catch me on YouTube. If not, though, if you're driving around, if you just don't have time to watch and you want to listen, make sure you subscribe on iTunes. And guys, we are finally on Spotify. It took me a couple weeks, but I got on Spotify, so check me out there as well. I actually have the link in the description for both of those. Working on Stitcher again. Stitcher's giving me some problems, but we'll get on Stitcher if that's the podcast platform you use. But as of right now, iTunes, Spotify for those that don't have iOS devices. Make sure you leave me a review. Leave me a comment on there. Tell me what you think about the podcast. If it's doing things that you're liking and you want to let me know, make sure you write me a little review. Leave me that 5-star rating if you think I'm worth that. But yeah, that's where we're at right now, guys. We are all caught up on all of our platforms, respectively. But today we have a very, very special show because we're going three different topics. Usually we kind of stick to one topic and go 50 minutes on it. Today we're doing 3. And we're starting off right off the rip. My boy, look, AJ already knows. AJ's in the chat, and he already knows what we're starting with, baby, that BMF title. So, for those people that are huge UFC fans, you've been following these two guys for a long time. We're talking Nate Diaz. We're talking Jorge Masvidal. But for those people that aren't huge UFC fans and are just kind of getting into the sport now, and they're wondering, why are these two guys considered the BMFs, the baddest mother shut your mouth fighters in the world, right? Why are these guys excuse me, I just had some lunch. The two guys that are considered widely by everyone to be, gangsters, goons, the two realest fighters on the roster. Well, I'll kind of do a short explanation. These two guys, Jorge Masvidal, Nate Diaz, have been around for, respectively like 14 and 12 years each. Been making their way through the ranks, maybe slip and stumble on a decision. Like, either of these guys aren't really guys that get knocked out in fights. They come to scrap, and they come to put on an entertaining performance. They're not coming to point fight. They're not coming to win by decision. They're coming to either knock you out or submit you. And for the longest time, they never got their title opportunities, or they never quite got to that point where they were in title contention. And so, instead of fighting for a belt, a championship belt, these two guys went out and made their own fight. And they made their own belt. Dana White confirmed it yesterday. There will be a physical BMF title belt. And these two guys did it, man. The fans wanted this. The media wanted it. And it happened to line up. Two veterans in the game. East Coast versus West Coast. It's the perfect storyline, guys. And if you guys aren't, by the way, follow me on Twitter at WPlem. If you guys aren't following me, I just put up a retweet of one of the guys that was at the press conference last night. I'm not sure who it was. Took a picture of the poster they're going to have for this fight. The sickest poster design I've seen in a long time from the UFC. The parental advisory poster, as it's being dubbed. Basically, you have, both the fighters on the poster, and then they have, those old school, like, CD parental advisories or television parental advisory signs that was like black with the white in the middle and the black underneath. Kind of black bar, white bar, black bar, and then it would say parental advisory, explicit, ages 14 and above, whatever. This one just says Diaz versus Masvidal. So sick. I mean, it's so simplistic. These guys, you don't have to over-promote this fight. So simplistic. You have one dude that wants that East Coast title of Miami Goon. You have a West Coast gangster in Nate Diaz. 209, 305. Everybody knows what the deal is. Both guys are coming to stop your heart. They're coming to rip your soul out and take it with them. That's it. And so you can't ask for much more as a fight fan. This is one of those fun ones. It's fan service to the highest degree, but it's not something that they're shoving on the fans. The fans made this fight. So, I'm excited for it. Let's get right into the 209, baby. Let's get right into kind of what happened during the press conference. It was not, if you're a big fan of super over-the-top theatrics at press conferences, kind of the Conor McGregor-esque style of press conference, this wasn't that. This was two guys that were very respectful of each other, coming into a setting to where the fans weren't really expecting them to be, have a lot of vitriol toward each other. They were just there as two figureheads, two guys that we already know. Like, they don't have to talk a bunch of stuff at each other to know that they're both coming in there with stone cold killer attitudes, ready to rip the other one's throat out. Like, we know that's the case. Jorge wants to give him the 3-piece in the soda. Nate wants to hit him with the Stockton slap. Like, we got the name, we got all the cool catchphrases, but at the end of the day, you strip all that away. Even if Jorge comes in with a Tony Montana suit on with the red and the white, it was amazing to watch, but you strip all that away and you have two guys that are just straight up goons that want to fight. So there wasn't really a lot of trash talk between the two. There were some funny moments. They asked Jorge about Conor McGregor, and I know we can't go a podcast without mentioning Conor McGregor, but it is what it is. He's the biggest star in the sport. And Jorge said, "Look, the boss man's right here. He's deemed it illegal. He's deemed it too dangerous. I'm too much of a man to fight Conor McGregor." And again, you want to goat Conor into a fight, you have to pick on his insecurities. And one of the biggest insecurities, at least that we've seen out of Conor recently, is that when Dana White came out and said that Jorge Masvidal was too big for Conor immediately, just like any other thing that Conor feels is disrespectful, immediately gets to Dana and says, "You think he's too big for me? What are you talking about?" So Jorge playing on the things that can push the buttons for Conor is the way to get that fight. If it were to happen down the road, it's a good seed to plant. And for the 14 years Jorge's been doing this, he hasn't really been given a ton of media opportunity, but when he has in this last year, he has capitalized. I mean, this guy has money on the mic. He was on ESPN's Get Up the other day, and they were showing the Ben Askren fight, and they were saying, "Why did you feel like you could just run out and knee Ben Askren?" He's like, "Look, the type of opponent Ben Askren is, I felt like he's not very adaptable. He can't really adapt to situations. So I ran out, hit the freeze button, then he hit the sleep button." Like, it's little quips and little lines like that. And when he says it, when he delivers it, it sounds like, all right, well, that's natural. That's organic to him. Like, that's how he speaks. It's not like a pre-written little thing that he was waiting to say on ESPN today, and he was like going over his lines. That's just how Jorge Masvidal talks. So he's done a really good job with his media opportunities. Yesterday, press conference, like I said, it was fun. They had some mic issues to begin with, and myself and AJ talked about that, how they not doing any favors to Nate Diaz. When one, he's not the best as far as like his vocal projection to begin with, and so you give him a kind of a crappy mic, and then that kind of sets it off. But other than that, like I said, it was a fun press conference. They didn't really get into too much information as far as like little stuff like Dana making this a reoccurring theme with the BMF title. He kind of squashed that immediately, says this is kind of a one-off fight. He's going to have a physical belt, so we learned that there will be an actual BMF physical title belt. We also learned that there's a lot of like celebrity influence around this. So The Rock, for example, wants to come in and put the belt around Jorge's waist if he wins. Should Jorge win, The Rock wants to enter the octagon and strap that 305 belt around Jorge, which would make sense, Rock being from Miami. And you just have a lot of different people interested in this fight outside of just our MMA fan base. It's becoming a worldwide phenomenon. So this fight is selling itself by fans becoming more broad and in embracing this BMF title slogan matchup, right? It's the most organic and natural way for fans to ingrain themselves into the sport, is to follow two guys. When you think of UFC and you're not an MMA fan, you think of brawling. You think of very intense, very damaging fights, right? What two guys to better embody that old school way of thinking, right? That old school, like, oh, well, that's just barbaric. Well, these two guys embody that. But on a newer level, they show that these two guys are not just barbarians and not just, dirty, rotten cage fighters. While they are very ingrained in their old school ways, they have this new school ability to bring in a fan base from people that didn't necessarily watch MMA before or are just getting into it, but because they are so simple, because this plan is so simplistic and you're introducing BMFs, everybody wants to be a BMF, right? Everybody wants to be that, regardless of if it's in fighting, if it's in your business. Everybody wants to be a top dog. And to sell it, you have two guys that embody that without even trying. So it's an amazing fight that's coming up. I cannot wait. I did get confirmation, guys. We are going to be streaming that from a studio. So if anybody wants to come in for the live stream reaction, we're going to be doing that from a studio. I can't say where, obviously, but it will be a fun experience. My boy AJ is not going to be there with me, but he will be on the hopefully one in the future. But yeah, it's going to be a fun time, man. It's going to be a fun card for me. I'm going to have a nice little setup. You guys are going to see. I can't say too much, but it's going to be a nice little setup for us. But yeah, the press conference kind of went off like that. They asked Jorge about what he was going to hit Nate with. And again, Jorge was very kind of subdued in this press conference. He said, look, I'm not looking to do the 2-piece and a soda or the MGM Grand Buffet. I'm just trying to come in and win this fight, man. He's like, I'm going to come in. This guy's tough. I'm going to do what I can, and I'm going to try to get him out of there. And Nate was the same way. They asked Nate how he was the baddest mother shut your mouth fighter in the UFC if he was a vegan. And he said, well, the Terminator's vegan, so what's up? So that was a pretty nice little quip. But yeah, the press conference overall, 25 minutes. The best part, in my opinion, was the face-off. Because again, very simplistic, but it shows on like a human level these two guys and their mentalities, right? You have the Nate Diaz double fists, which is iconic. That's Nate's stance. And you have the iconic Jorge with the hands behind the back. What he did to Ben Askren before he ran out and flatlined him. Kind of okay, I'm not too I'm harmless. You know, I'm not going to do anything. I'm just kind of sitting here with my hands behind my back. And what he did to Leon Edwards with the combo backstage. Like, the legend of Jorge Masvidal has grown from this. From walking around like, I'm not doing anything. I'm harmless. Approach me. See what happens. I'm harmless. I'm not going to do anything. And then he just, you know. So, that is, by the way, for people that weren't watching right there, that was my attempt at a combo. It wasn't the best. All right. My mic's in the way. I couldn't really get my reach extended. Wasn't the best. But, yes, that was our press conference yesterday. The fight itself, we could break it down right now, but I want to wait. We have a month, guys. We have a month to talk about this BMF title, and I don't want to oversaturate you guys to it right now because I don't want to do, just talk about it to where, one, I get over it, and two, you guys get tired of me saying it. So we're just going to leave it right there at the press conference. We had to talk about the press conference. That's why we didn't do the podcast yesterday. I had to see it, and I wanted to discuss it with you guys. So press conference went over great. Nate walked in with the T-shirt and the jeans, typical Nate stuff. But Jorge, man, that Tony Montana suit, that was something special. My man was jazzed up. But yeah, New York came out in droves. Ariel Helwani got a huge pop in New York for the press conference, so that was pretty cool. But yeah, that was the BMF presser. Like I said, went over great. Could have used a little bit of better production value, but it is what it is. We move forward. Yeah, so that was that. And we also, people are kind of forgetting that we have a card this weekend, guys. We have a pretty decent card this weekend. UFC Mexico City, headlined by Yair Rodriguez and Jeremy Stevens. And in the co-main, representing Team Oyama Fitness, Carla Esparza, guys. Carla Esparza, Alexa Grasso, women's strawweight bout. Look, Carla Esparza, again, I've only seen her a couple times in the gym that I go to. She does go train at the gym that I take classes at. She's the inaugural 115 champ, guys. She is one of the best 115s on the planet. And do not sleep on this girl. She's number 8 right now in the rankings, but I'm telling you, Team Oyama and everybody over there all we can talk about is how Carla Esparza is going to make that climb again. So do not be surprised when she comes out and gets this W. So that's where we're going to start our picks. We're going to pick the main card, and we will pick one prelim. So we'll make it real quick. Let's do this so you guys can see. Whoops. Let's do this. Let's do one of these. Okay, so we have our prelim card here. We are going to pick one fight. Let's pick the Sergio Pettis fight just because I'm a big fan of Sergio Pettis and the Pettis brothers in general. So Sergio Pettis, Tyson Nam. Flyweight bout. Don't know much about Tyson. Let's take a look at it more closely, in depth. Okay, looks like this might be Tyson's first fight on the UFC roster. Sergio obviously having a long layoff. His last fight he took a loss in, and from that had a very long layoff. So we'll see where Sergio is. This is in Mexico City. So I have a feeling that this is a local fighter, Tyson, and Sergio going to kind of have to adjust to that altitude. Everybody that's fought in Mexico City knows that altitude is a very, very big factor in the fights. That's why Cain Velasquez has the nickname Sea Level Cain. His cardio used to be Cardio Cain, but his cardio is insane, and then he goes up to Mexico City to fight Junior Dos Santos and can't even stand up straight. It was a bad fight for Cain. It was just you have to get used to that altitude, and if you don't go there ahead of time, that's what happens. So we're going to go with Sergio Pettis, though. 125s usually won't have as big of an issue with this altitude because they are in such phenomenal shape. I'm going to say Sergio Pettis, and the way Sergio fights, he's not, TKOing people all left and right. He does have a couple of finishes in his record, but I'll say by unanimous decision, Sergio Pettis. We'll do that. And let's see on this main card where we're starting with. Main card. Irene Aldana. Vanessa Mello. Again, don't know too much about these ladies. We're just going to go Irene. Decision. Brandon Moreno. Askarov. We'll go, I like his name, so we'll go flyweight Askarov by decision. And we're going Carla Esparza. Don't even ask me the question. We're going my girl Carla Esparza. We're doing it. We'll see. Alexa Grasso's tough. She only got 2 losses on her record. She's tough to deal with, but Carla's good everywhere. Her ground game's insane. Her ground and pound's phenomenal. Stand up is there. So Carla really doesn't have a big weakness. So it doesn't really matter where this fight goes. I think Carla's going to have the advantage in pretty much every aspect of the fight. So I'll say a dominant decision by Carla. Dominant to kind of reclaim where she is in the strawweight division. I think a lot of people have forgotten about Carla Esparza. And I'll tell you something. She is going to come back and be strong. There's a lot of people that think that she can compete with, that she can't compete with some of these girls at the top of the class. But keep sleeping on my girl Carla. See what happens. I'm going dominant decision. And then we have our main event. Yair Rodriguez, Jeremy Stephens. A very interesting fight because a lot of the buildup leading up into this fight is that Jeremy Stephens hasn't seen anybody like Yair Rodriguez before. And that's very true as far as Yair's technique. There's not a lot of guys like Yair Rodriguez. He just has, his kicks are insane. He throws spinning hook kicks. He throws front kicks up the middle. He throws spinning, jumping side kicks to the body. He throws tornado kicks. Then off of those kicks, he throws strikes. So he'll throw a high kick and then a jab behind it and a spinning hook kick and then a knee to the body. Like, he's very explosive. Very explosive. And he's a very tall guy for 145. He's 5'11". But they share the same reach, which is odd to me. That Yair, being as tall as he is, I mean, he's a 3-inch height advantage on and 5'8", I think, is being generous for Jeremy Stephens. I don't know if he's even 5'8". But for Yair to have such a big height advantage and not that and zero reach advantage is a little bit of an interesting kind of dynamic there. But it's not like Yair is a boxing-based guy anyway. He is a taekwondo, almost karate style of fighting with his kicks, and his hands kind of follow up from that. So his most dangerous weapon, in my opinion, are his kicks. Jeremy Stephens, though, I mean, what do you say about the guy? The guy has gone through wars with everyone. Arguably, some people thought he beat Zabit Magomed Shapirov in his last fight. I mean, it was a close fight, and Jeremy Stephens has been he's been in there with everybody. He lost to Jose Aldo by the liver shot, the body punch, but before that had gone on a tear, just running through guys. Beat the Korean Zombie, beat Korean Superboy, beat Josh Emmett. I mean, he had gone through and beat some really tough young guys. And in Josh Emmett's case, younger to the division and super powerful. But Jeremy Stephens is never a guy that you look at and say he's out of a fight. He damn near beat Frankie Edgar, had him wobbled badly a couple of years ago with a head kick. So it's an interesting fight. I think Jeremy Stevens' forward pressure is going to get to Yair. It's going to give him some problems, especially when you get inside Yair's kicking range. I know he can throw him up from anywhere. He's got the explosiveness and the ability to throw up kicks from, moving backward from kind of in close and clinch range when you're not really supposed to be able to throw kicks up, but his kind of flexibility and his explosivity is key to him being able to be different and be as creative. And in both these guys' case, the fight isn't over until, that third and final, well, in this case, that fifth and final round ends, because we've seen with Yair literally last-second knockouts with the reverse elbow on Korean Zombie, which was insane. Jeremy Stevens has won fights where he's been down on the cards and landed huge punches. So the fight's not over at all until someone either gets put out or that fifth and final round is complete. So do not count either of these guys out. I just think that Jeremy Stevens can pressure for 5. Jeremy Stevens has fought in 2 or 3, 4 main events in the last year, or co-mains in the last year. So he's been 5 rounds a couple of times. Yair hasn't. I don't know if he's been the full 5 other than a couple of times in his career. So it's an experience factor. Obviously, training to fight in Mexico City. Jeremy Stevens has been with Tony Ferguson in his camp in Big Bear this time around. And some of the stories you hear about Tony Ferguson are funny as heck. But when you hear another fighter talk about it, Jeremy Stevens is saying they would train for something crazy like 7 hours straight. Right? They would just be training, going hard, like just full training. And then would stop and then go watch Rocky IV. That's what Tony Ferguson does, apparently. It's the more you hear about Tony Ferguson, the more you like the guy. He's just so different, man. His techniques, his the way he approaches everything is just so different, and it's awesome. Train for 7 hours, go watch Rocky IV. I think some of that, the thinking behind that might be, okay, Tony's preparing to fight a Russian. Maybe he gets the same kind of, he wants to be in that same kind of mental space as Rocky fighting an unstoppable Russian. I don't know, but it's hilarious. But yeah, I'm thinking, I'm thinking for this is tough, man. It's really tough. Let's go. I'm going Jeremy Stevens. Look, I know that Yair Rodriguez is a tough guy, man, and I know he's taken some shots. He took some of Frankie Edgar's biggest shots, and it was a TKO, but he was still in there trying to fight back, still doing his thing. But Jeremy Stevens is going to pressure forward for 5 rounds. Going to pressure forward. And Yair does need space to get off some shots. And Jeremy does tend to get a little wild sometimes, but I think over his last couple of years, he's really been able to control that kind of urge to just throw crazy wild shots, and he's really been composed and staying within himself. Now, he does always possess that nasty power, put you to sleep power. And so I think that Jeremy Stevens is going to I think he's going to come forward on Yair. I think as the fight goes on and Yair maybe gets frustrated or just cannot get those shots off, I think that Jeremy Stevens are overwhelm him. And I'm going to say we get a stoppage. I think Jeremy gets one of these big right hands and wobbles Yair and then gets a TKO, ground and pound. We'll say third round. Third round TKO after just overwhelming Yair for a couple of rounds, Jeremy Stevens. And Yair is one of these guys, man. It's a stylistic kind of matchup for Jeremy Stevens that I really like. It's not like he's going to have to deal with a ton of stuff. I would like to see Yair employ some leg kicks to maybe slow that forward pressure from Jeremy Stevens. But at the end of the day, I think Jeremy is such a good stand-up fighter and such a forward pressure fighter. Yair's going to have some trouble. I know that Yair struggles with grappling guys, and Frankie did some work on him, but he got hit very easily in that Korean Zombie fight, very easily, and got tagged over and over and over. So it's going to be something where you look at this fight and see if Yair can find a way to get off those big flashy kicks, or if being in Mexico City, I know he's from Mexico, so I'm sure he's used to sort of that altitude change, if that's going to affect his explosivity. And if Jeremy Stevens can deal with that altitude as well and still put on a pace that frustrates Yair Rodriguez. We're going third round TKO, Jeremy Stevens. Carla Esparza decision. We had Steven. Is this? Yeah, Carla Esparza decision. Jeremy Stevens TKO. And Askar decision, and Irene decision. Oh, and Steven Peterson by KO. Screw it. I don't know. Yeah, this card isn't as really as name heavy as some of the others that we've watched lately, and some of the others coming up. But the main event is very important for that featherweight division. You have Alexander Volkanovski, Max Holloway, right there at the top of the division. But outside of that, you have Brian Ortega. He's obviously looking for a fight. He's training for a fight. So we're going to see if maybe one of these guys can get up into that top 5 and challenge for possibly a title shot by maybe mid to late next year. This is a pretty big fight for both guys. For Yair, he's been a long time off in between fights for a good amount of time there. For Jeremy, he kind of felt like he got robbed against Zabit. Wants to come back and prove his worth in that division because Zabit is right there for the taking too. So after Volkanovski, you have Zabit sitting there. One of these two guys right behind that. So we're starting to fill out that top 5, and the winner of this fight is going to be right there. So a great main event, a great co-main, and then some guys and ladies on this card that are, like I said, the name recognition isn't quite there, but there are going to be some great fights here. So that is our UFC Mexico City predictions and preview. We talked about the BMF presser. Now we're going to talk about something that is probably not the most popular in my community, which is okay. I understand that a lot of people, even on this platform, take some of the other things that are on this platform not as serious and kind of just scoff at it, especially in this community. The MMA and combat sports community is a very loyal, I would say, against most fake and most kind of, I don't even know how you would describe it. Basically, our community wants to see a lot of real, it's hard to describe. Basically, what I'm talking about, we're going to talk about the Logan Paul KSI press conference and the fight itself. Now, I know my community, just like a lot of YouTube communities, don't take this fight seriously. They see these guys as two cringe shows that get up on stage and talk about each other's moms and girlfriends and hairlines and all the stuff that you wouldn't think two professional fighters would have to talk about, and or would even it makes you look kind of amateur hour, right? But it is important for the YouTube space. It's important for YouTube, commentary, for YouTube creators that are looking to get into the combat sports world, that are already in it. And this is important. It's a huge thing for YouTube. It is huge for these creators. It's huge for YouTube boxing. So big ups to Logan Paul and KSI for that. But the fight itself, that's what we're going to talk about. And what we think. So last year, if you guys remember, we covered this fight. We live stream reacted to the press conference. We watched the fight on our own time, and then we discussed it on mine and Kelsey's way to the Grand Canyon. So last year, we did talk about this fight. We broke it down. We thought Logan would win. KSI just didn't. When you look at KSI's boxing background and everything that he brings into that fight that first time, it didn't seem like there was a lot to really give him a chance. But he surprised me, and I think he surprised a lot of people and took Logan the full 6. And ultimately, there was a draw. A lot of people thought KSI won. Some people thought Logan won. Shogun, what's going on, baby? But we're going to talk about it, guys, because it's gotten bigger now, right? It's not just YouTube. They have this platform. Both guys have gotten their license in California to become professional boxers. So they are going to put on a professional boxing event with one of the biggest professional boxing promoters, Eddie Hearn, and DAZN, the streaming service that is home to guys like Canelo Alvarez, for a long time, Tyson Fury, Anthony Joshua, Andy Ruiz, obviously. So we're going to cover it because it's important. And as much as I and I'm sure you guys look at this and kind of laugh and think this is so silly. These guys are doing things that no other YouTuber has done, and they definitely are drinking their own Kool-Aid, calling themselves professionals without ever having a professional bout. Outside of 2 amateur bouts for KSI and 1 for Logan against another YouTuber who aren't necessarily boxers. I understand it. It's a very semantic game to play when you consider yourself a professional and that you're going to continue to do this against other professionals. I think they're smart enough to know that they're not going to do that against other professional boxers with tens of and 12, 13 years of experience. I doubt that. But for this fight, we'll take it for what it is in a bubble, and we'll do this. So Shogun says KSI doesn't look in shape. He's got bitch tits, for Christ's sake. Well, I did see KSI at the press conference the other day, and he doesn't look in as good a shape as he did in the first fight. I think with a lot of stuff that KSI has going on, I know he's doing like a music tour he did in Europe. I think he has a new album or a new song playlist, whatever he's got. I don't even know what you'd call it. I guess a new album he's got out and he's doing tours for. So I don't know if he was as concentrated on this second fight as he was on the first. I don't even know if the vitriol between both guys is there like it was in the first fight. I think it is from Logan's side. I think Logan is one of these guys that is a athlete that happens to be doing YouTube now. That's just a really good entertainer. But Logan, I think, is a guy that is, and so is KSI, but Logan on a different level is physically very competitive, physically. KSI obviously now is, but it hasn't always been the case for KSI. I know he's been competitive in, his video games and the YouTube and growing his business and growing his whole channel and everything like that. That's, 100% give him his credit. He's done an amazing, phenomenal job, one of the biggest YouTubers ever. And same with Logan, but on a physical level, I mean, you talk about Logan Paul, who's a guy that wrestled in high school, obviously a pretty well-decorated wrestler in Ohio, which is one of the biggest wrestling meccas in high school sports in the United States. So this guy has a competitive background physically, and that propels him to do well in YouTube and his other, his podcast, whatever else, by the way. His podcast is cool, but this is the, W.A.D.E concept, one-man show, doing it for an hour, 3 times a week. I ain't got any other co-hosts. I don't need them. Just me. Ain't nobody else doing that. But Shogun says Logan will light him up this time. Quite possibly could. I've seen Logan, bits and pieces from both guys. They're really not letting a lot of information out as far as their sparring and how each other is kind of getting prepared. I know that KSI is going to be in Vegas for a little bit, training with the Mayweathers, which I think is interesting. But it's so close to the fight. I mean, we're only 5-6 weeks out. I know regular training camps would start right now, but KSI does seem like he's a little behind. KSI is training, like I said, halfway in the UK and then half his time in Vegas. I don't know how that, because it's Vidal Riley's his main coach, and then you have him working with the Mayweathers. I don't know if that's going to contradict or if that's going to be a nice blend. I'm not sure. That could have a factor in the fight. I know he did something like that for the first fight. And then Logan, I think, switched up his trainer. He's with Shannon Briggs for this fight, for this time around, which is another interesting kind of switch up. Shannon the Cannon Briggs, if you guys do remember, 2-time heavyweight champion of the world, or most recently, the biggest troll in heavyweight boxing, trying to get his fight with Klitschko, which was hilarious. But if you don't know him by any of those two things, then Let's Go Champ. Let's Go Champ. That's Shannon the Cannon Briggs. One of the greatest. He was on Joe Rogan's podcast. One of the greatest personalities in boxing. Some people find him annoying. I think he's a pretty cool dude. I just think he's one of those guys, man, that just loves boxing through and through. Loves his craft and has propelled himself through his own self-belief to be able to reach those heights, even as a later in his career, even though he was, dabbling in some of the supplements that aren't allowed. But the Let's Go Champ thing, and you hear his whole story, he's a great guy, and, a great guy to have for Logan in his corner. But as far as the fight itself, man, well, first off, the press conference, I thought this time around, like I watched the first press conference they had in L.A. for the first fight, and, it seemed very YouTube-ish, right? It seemed very clickbaity. It seemed like they didn't really know each other. They didn't know how to approach things, so they just tried to say the most savage line to one another, right? There wasn't a lot of substance in that press conference. This is a year ago I'm talking about, where they were talking about Jake was on stage yelling Walmart at KSI's younger brother, and they were talking about the headband and how KSI never wears anything out without his headband. Like, it wasn't stuff that really captivated like an older audience. But as Shogun points out, they did a 1.3 million pay-per-view buys. So that has interested a guy like Eddie Hearn when he, kind of disavowed it to begin with. But now that they're professional fighters, right? Now that they're stepping up and they're taking the headgear off and they're going to I think it's 10-ounce gloves. This is for real, right? This is professional boxing. There are going to be guys on the card that are professional boxers. Yep, and they had 500K illegal streaming on Twitch, which was insane. I bought that pay-per-view, by the way. I bought that on YouTube. But this time around, I thought, okay, they got the first kind of fight jitters out of the way. These guys are going to come on stage and take this seriously. And I do think they're both taking it seriously, but I still don't understand the promotion value of what they're doing. Logan, I think, got a little upset with himself, too. If you watch the press conference back, he gets so upset with KSI, and it's both both guys. It's like who can trigger who, right? Who can, say something to trigger the other one, and the other one's super mad. So I've won the press conference. I think both these guys don't quite understand professional boxing promotion as far as like on stage for professional boxing fans. They can do the YouTube promotion and they'll get their subscriber base and the things that YouTube requires, they'll get. But as far as being taken seriously by the boxing community, the way to do it is not by yelling out JJ has no dick and having your mom like go, yeah, he doesn't. And for it's crazy to me that is where that press conference delved into. No, they're not. They're not pros. Like, they're not professional boxers. They can call themselves, they can go get the license, they can do the whole thing and consider themselves professional boxers, but until you fight an actual professional boxer, someone that's trained, someone that has more than one fight professionally or more than 0 fights professionally, and you take that fight, then I'm in. You're a professional boxer. But when you're fighting former amateurs that this is their first time professional, your first time professional, you're not professional boxers yet. You're not. And like I said, the press conference was, whatever. It was a cringe fest. We talked. JJ has no dick. Your breath smells. Your breath smells. Like it wasn't entertaining to me. It felt like they either didn't want to be there on JJ's behalf. It didn't even seem like JJ wanted to be there. JJ being KSI. And on Logan's part, it seemed like he was trying so hard to goat KSI into pushing him or getting physical with him or getting him mad, that it was coming off as very, very forced. Very forced. And it just seemed like they weren't very prepared, right? It wasn't the most prepared guy up there was Vidal. I thought Vidal handled himself amazingly. I mean, Vidal's been in these press conferences. He's an actual professional boxer. He was getting chattered on by Shannon Briggs, and he handled himself like a pro, man. I thought he was the most prepared on stage. I don't even know what Jake was doing up there, to be quite honest with you. I know they want him on the card. I know he wants to fight, and there's like an issue with who he's going to be fighting. But every time Jake speaks, like in those kind of settings, it's rough to watch, man. I can't take that kid seriously. Like Logan, if I met Logan, I'm sure Logan would be a cool dude. I think Logan has his stuff put together. I think that he is, for all the bad things you can say about Logan Paul, I think he's actually trying to do better with all the, the stuff in the forest and the whole filming dead people and rats and all that stuff. I think he's trying to legitimize himself outside of the YouTube space. I think he wants to get away from controversial, like, YouTuber guy. I think he wants to be Logan Paul, who is, a successful businessman, can be taken seriously in an athletics, spectrum. But Jake, man, Jake is just, he seems like a guy that no one would be happy being around. He seems like he just makes life rough for everybody that's around him. And you can't take him seriously. He's up there with like one earring in, and he just looks like a complete douche. Like, if I had a bigger following, I'd want to smash that kid's face in. And Logan too. Like, I would love to fight Logan as just, purely competitive. I think it'd be a bad fight for either of those guys. I think that they think they're very good boxers and very good combat athletes, and Logan very well could be, and that's why I would like to test myself against Logan, but I think Jake would have a real rough time with it. He had a pink outfit on, wasn't there to get in a verbal fight. It just seemed like KSI didn't want to be there. It seemed like the promotion for the fight has already been done. I mean, they have DAZN on their side, so they're doing a ton of promotion. KSI just kind of was there. He didn't really, seem like he even wanted to fight Logan. I think KSI wants to fight Jake more than he wants to fight Logan. So it didn't seem like he was really interacting. He was just kind of there, and maybe that was his strategy, to just kind of be carefree and like, all right, well, I'm here, whatever. But we'll break the fight down more as it comes. I don't want to do any too much of fight breakdown right now. I remember I wanted to talk about the press conference because it is, it's a huge deal, especially for YouTubers like myself who want to cover the sport professionally. This could be the way that we blend that, where it's really hard for guys that start on YouTube like myself to get into that professional role without any kind of actual, experience on, big major networks. Maybe this is the gap that we can all use to bridge to say, look, not only are there good fighters, or, in Logan and KSI's case, average fighters with big followings on these YouTube platforms, but there are creators that are covering your sports, that could be, useful to a network, to a company, whatever it is. So I think it's a big deal, and props to both guys. Like, I'm not going to sit here and act like I could do anything they're doing on the marketing or subscriber rate, anything like that. Now, as far as the fight, I mess both those fools up, straight up. Like, me and AJ talked about this. AJ said I get slept. You're out of your mind if you think Logan Paul or KSI is going to sleep me. I'd wax both those fools. I'd wax. It's not even nothing. Like, not even a bead of sweat will come down my face. KSI, it'd be a rough time for KSI. Logan would give me a good fight. Logan would give me a solid fight. He'd give me a proper fight. KSI he'd have some trouble. I would and I would demolish Jake. Like, what is Jake gonna do to me? Keep his chin straight up in the air and throw that jab out 20 times? Yeah, right, bro. That fool gets slept with or without headgear on. But anyway, pump the brakes on me just boasting myself up. That's the fight, November 9th. And yeah, we're gonna go in depth about it. We'll talk about the backstory of the fight. We'll talk about especially like weigh-in day and stuff like that. Logan and Mendenhall, give it to me. I need suicides. Me and Logan Paul, Mendenhall, right now. One hand tied behind my back. I'll just pop the jab on him all day. But yeah, we'll talk about the backstory of this fight, why they're doing it again, who I think is going to win the fight. I think it's pretty obvious to know, at least at this point, who I think is going to win the fight. But we'll go into more depth as that fight gets closer, and we'll talk more about it. And if Jake gets on the card, we'll talk about Jake's fight and who he should fight. I heard Face Sensei's trying to get on the card. I heard Anderson Gibb is trying to get on the card. I'd rather see Face Sensei on the card. I think he is a actual complete fighter. I think I'd love to spar a guy like Face Sensei too. That'd be a great test for me. But yeah, I think Sensei would give any of those guys on the card. He's probably the best boxer in my opinion, or best combat athlete on YouTube right now. I think Saunders is the co-main right now. I don't think if they put Jake on the card that they would move Billy Joe Saunders down. I think Jake would be like a prelim fight. But yeah, that's that fight for now. Oh yeah, okay. Kyle says KSI a clean knockout and Face Sensei destroys them all. I think Face Sensei would have his way with anybody on that card that's not a professional, Billy Joe Saunders fighter like that. I think he would wax Logan, KSI, which I know he wouldn't fight KSI. I think they're boys, but he would wax Logan or Jake. But we'll hold off on the main event predictions for me for now. I don't want to get too into it right now and have my pick a month and a half before the fight. But we'll talk more about it as it comes closer and as they do weigh-ins. And I think they're doing one more press conference. We'll break all that down. But we'll say this for the first press conference, it was very weak. Very weak, left a lot to be desired. It just seemed like a watered-down YouTube event. It seemed like two guys that were throwing childish little insults at each other for the entertainment of 11-year-olds. And if that's all this is going to be, then, that is what it is. But I thought these guys were going to come with more prepared, like, pro confidence, charisma, the stuff that we see from these bigger press conferences, and where we come from, MMA and that kind of combat sport. We see guys that are really about what they say. Like, they're not playing. I mean, yeah, Colby Covington has some weird stuff, but we're talking about guys that are really coming for people's necks. We're not talking about how much someone's breast stinks. $20 KSI won't make weight. Hey, Shogun, I'm not throwing 20 down because I don't even know how they're going to. They might catch weight this fight. I have no idea what they're going to do with this. I have no idea what weight they're fighting at. But KSI is looking a little hefty. Another thing that's getting me, and we're just going to kind of rant here because I've got 11 minutes we got like 10 minutes here still left on the podcast, and I want to kind of rant. Another thing that really bothers me, and I reached out to DAZN literally today. 185. Ooh, that's a little bit of a cut for Logan if they're going to fight at 185. I think Logan walks around at like 215. So that could be interesting. But yeah, so I'm watching this press conference, right? And I reached out to DAZN. I'll save you guys the suspense. No one got back to me. So it is what it is. But I'm watching this press conference, and they got they got Tevin Farmer, and Tevin Farmer, phenomenal professional boxer, phenomenal. But they're not talking about Tevin Farmer. They're talking about KSI and Logan Paul. And they have this guy up here that knows nothing about KSI or Logan Paul. Not to say that he necessarily should, but if they're going to have him on a presser that involves two YouTubers transitioning to make their pro boxing debut, would you not think that they would put somebody, True Jordy, who commentated their first fight, guy knows both guys, sat down, interviews both guys. Why would you not bring a guy like that on? That can lend a little bit more to the detail of this fight. Not only just in the day of the fight, but the lead up. You're talking about a month and a half we're going to have to build this fight. And I guarantee you the people at DAZN know exactly who True Jordy is. Eddie Hearn knows he can get some people on there. I myself reached out to DAZN to say, hey, look, I covered these guys for the last 2 years. I did it on my own YouTube channel. I know the backstory. I know the detail. I know why they're fighting. I know that the advantages one guy has over the other. It's not, and they have Tevin Farmer up there going, well, Tevin, who do you pick and why? Tevin goes, well, I think they're both going to come in around the same weight. They both have the same reach, same height. I was like, okay, yeah, same weight. Well, yeah, they're professional boxers, so I'm sure they'll have some kind of either 185 or a catch weight they'll meet at. But you're talking about same height, same weight. You don't see the two guys on stage. Did you even watch the first fight? Yeah, he's like, oh, the best fighter will win. You can't get worse commentary than that. The best fighter will win. Of course, yeah, it's true. That's like me going, hey, that's outside. This is a window. Yeah, it's a fact, but it doesn't help decide anything. It doesn't make any sense. I really was really frustrated with how DAZN just didn't bring anybody from the YouTube space onto the platform. And that's nothing against them. They have their people in place, and they have people on payroll, and this is still a professional boxing event. So they're going to have guys like Tevin who cover other boxing events that he will know more about, like guys like Billy Joe Saunders. But why not have a third person or a correspondent that comes in and talks to the fighters that knows a little bit about them? That doesn't just ask generic questions like, oh, what are you doing to prepare for this fight? Or now that you've fought him once, what does it feel like? It's stuff that people on the YouTube side know that they could really take advantage of, and they're just not bringing it. It frustrated me to no end watching them just sit up there and have blank stares on their faces when they asked him any question about Logan Paul. Tevin Farmer didn't even know who they were. And again, that's nothing against Tevin, but DAZN. Look, I know I'm gonna make my pitch right here on podcast. DAZN, look, I got 152 subscribers on YouTube. That's plus or minus 1 million. We'll leave that part out. I know that I'm a small channel. I can do this job that you're asking Tevin Farmer and other people that have no idea about these YouTubers. They have a massive knowledge, far outweighing my knowledge in boxing. I'll concede that. But they have zero knowledge about this YouTube space. I can run circles around them in this commentary role. I can do that for you. It will be so easy to run the normal promotion for DAZN and do it, business as usual, and they'll still do a really good amount of pay-per-view buys. But if you want people outside of the YouTube world, because those people are already going to buy the pay-per-view. They already are for Logan and KSI. They're already going to buy that. They know the backstory. They know what's coming. They want to see that fight. But for professional boxing fans, for people that have no idea why they're watching this other than Billy Joe Saunders is on the card, I'm telling you, it is going to take a better commentary than what you guys just put on. That was a terrible start to that press conference. And obviously the press conference that Logan and KSI put on didn't help themselves. But you need people to be entertained. You need people to be intrigued by these two YouTubers fighting. Just the same way that people are intrigued by Jorge Masvidal and Jorge Masvidal and Nate Diaz. They're intrigued because it's simplistic. They understand it. This guy's a West Coast guy. This guy's an East Coast guy. They've been fighting. They're getting their opportunities finally. How simple is it to go, biggest guy on YouTube, biggest guy on YouTube. Literal hatred in this rivalry, dating back a couple of years. KSI, the first to introduce a YouTube belt. Logan Paul, coming back from a year of complete controversy, called out, decides he's going to take a fight, and both guys having so much to lose, because in this YouTube space, it's not like you just show up for a fight, you lose, you go to the next one. You're talking about 20 million subscribers. You're talking about, 7 million Twitter followers, 18 million Instagram followers. These guys live for content. And how does that content business work out for you when you get slept inside one round? So you're putting everything on the line for this. Everything on the line. And for them to still have, and quite frankly, have the balls to do it and put themselves out there in a sport that they've never done and still come out and do it again now professionally, I'm telling you, I can write this story for you, DAZN. Do I know how much the pay-per-view is going to be? I don't know. I think DAZN has I don't know if they do the same thing that ESPN Plus does, where they have a paywall and then their monthly fee and then another on top of that. I'm not sure. I think you just pay their monthly fee, which is $10. I think $10 a month, and then you'll be able to access the fight. I'm not sure though. Don't hold me to that. I have no idea. But man, that frustrated me. That just to have, and even I don't know who the girl was that they had on there. I forgot her name. The person that was interviewing Tevin Farmer. She just had no idea anything about the two people that are going to be main eventing on DAZN. That frustrates me. So DAZN, if you're looking for an analyst, if you're looking for somebody to come in and do voiceover for these montage packages that you guys are going to put out for Logan and KSI, all the training footage, if you're looking at somebody that's passionate about the YouTube space and the YouTube boxing scene or YouTube combat sports scene, I'm here. And like I said, if you're looking for somebody to face the winner or the loser, I'm here for that too, man. No, I don't think they'll jack it up to $60. There's no way. I don't see them being that naive to think that these two guys are going to sell out Staples and a million pay-per-view buys at $60 per buy. I think it's naive to think they're going to sell out Staples. That's going to be tough to do, man. LA is not I think they were in the O2 in London. It's not like that, man. LA, there's too much to do. There's way too much to do. You think half the population in LA gives a shit about Logan Paul or KSI? If they're not YouTube-based, do you think people are going to waste their time and not go to the beach that day or do whatever? I think they'll do well for themselves. I just don't think they sell out Staples for it. If they do, big ups. And like I said, I'd love to be a part of the reason they do. Let me tell that story for them. But we'll see, man. We'll see. I'm going to keep persistent in the next couple of weeks, and maybe DAZN will throw a bone out there for a guy with a small YouTube following, man. We'll see what happens. But yeah, guys, that is our podcast today. I know it was a little choppy today. It wasn't as smooth as I'd like it to be. I got on here a little frustrated with the whole DAZN YouTube thing, and I wanted to get that off my chest. But we had to get through the BMF presser first, the stuff that we really are excited about. The BMF presser was a gem for the UFC. They kind of dropped the ball with the audio production, but still, they could have stood up there and not said a word and had Nate and Jorge face off and left, and the entire fans would have gone nuts, right? So the marketing on that fight has been really well done. The marketing is really well done for that. AJ says, hell of a job, T-Wade. KSI sleeping yo ass. Yeah, right. KSI, dude. KSI be in for it. He would have some problems, brother. I promise you. I hit like bricks, man. He don't want this smoke. Shogun, thanks for being here. AJ, thanks for being here. Kyle, thank you again for being here, man. Everybody that came in today, thank you so much. Like I said, the BMF presser was a success, regardless of the issues audio-wise. They had a really good setup. The parental advisory posters, they've destroyed the marketing for this. They've absolutely killed it. So we just can't wait until November 2nd. And then we have UFC Mexico City this Saturday. We won't be live streaming. I'll be working, but we will get on Monday and recap. So good luck to my girl Carla Esparza. Timo Yama, stand up, baby. And thank you guys so much for watching. We'll be back on to talk more Logan Paul KSI as that fight gets closer as well. Let's hope they can salvage whatever that first press conference was and actually get something that makes us boxing fans and people outside of 12-year-old YouTubers excited about this card. So yeah, thank you guys so much. Until next time, this is the W.A.D.E concept. We are debating everything. Make sure you subscribe here on YouTube if you like what we're doing. Hit that like button. And check me out on iTunes Podcast and Spotify. We'll see you next time, everybody. Peace.